Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to International Friendship Debate. My name is Narahiko Inoue, professor at Faculty of Language and Cultures, Kyushu University, and this is our third annual International Friendship Debate with Korea's Ewha Women's University and Kyushu University. And in the past 2 years, we had debate between Kyushu University ESS team and Ewha Women's Debate Association team. But this year we have a slightly different arrangement and also a big change in the format of debate. And Professor Kipp, who will explain those formats and what you should expect in debate. Well, this event is part of our intensive course for Kyushu University students yesterday and today, and then July 6th in a 3-day, really intensive debate course. Students are learning debate in English. And this is part of that course and also a public event. And I'd like to introduce Professor Kipp, who has been successfully coaching Korea's top team and giving lectures all over the world, including Kyushu University. Kipp.
Thank you very much, Professor Inoue. It's a real pleasure to be here for the 3rd year in a row with my debaters, and I really appreciate the invitation from Professor Inoue and from Kyushu University. It's a great chance for us to experience a little bit of a different debating culture and learn from different points of view, especially about this very interesting topic that we're debating today. This House regrets the rise of nationalism in Japan. Korea and Japan have been close neighbors, sometimes good friends, sometimes bitter enemies through many years in history. So these days, as we see Prime Minister Abe adopting sort of more consciously nationalistic policies and focusing Japanese attention on Japan's own national pride, people are very curious about what will happen in the future, and that's sort of the topic of today's debate. So it's interesting to have Koreans and Japanese debating together. We should have a very good range of points of view, and maybe hear some interesting ideas that we didn't know before. That's always the most exciting part of any debate for me. If I hear something that I never thought of or didn't know, it can be very educational. So I'm going to give a brief explanation of what to expect, although I think most of you have been in the class, so you already know. But to go back, let's see, maybe actually, I think I can just go back like this. Yeah. Okay, so to our two guests, we have a few guests anyway, just to give you some idea of what to expect in the debate. I'll start out with talking about what is British parliamentary debate. I'll introduce the debaters, then we'll see the debate, and finally we'll have voting in the audience. So actually every member of the audience, you are eligible to vote after the debate, and the winner and the best speaker will be determined by the audience vote only. So in this case, your vote really does count. It's not just an exercise in trying to analyze the debate. You actually get to choose who the winning team is and who the best speaker is. So what is British parliamentary debate? Well, the very basic things you need for any debate are 2 sides, because it's a structured activity. It's not like regular conversation where you may have 6 different people with 6 different opinions. It's more structured than that. It's confrontational and oppositional in nature, although as an academic exercise, of course, when it's over, everyone is still a good friend and you don't end up fighting, even if you disagree in the debate. You need a topic, and you need rules, so that it's not, again, simply people just shouting out whatever they feel at any time, but there are rules so each team has an equal chance to impress the judges and win. So finally you have judges. And the basic rules for British parliamentary debates which are also known as Worlds, or WUDC, World University Debate Championship style. It's based on coalition politics in parliament. So you may have many cases where two conservative parties support the same idea. Maybe they have slightly different reasons. One of them supports an idea because it increases national pride. The second one supports the idea because it increases profits for business, but both of them conservative ideas. And you may have two liberal parties opposing that idea. One liberal party because it has an international point of view and doesn't think national pride is good. And the second one because it has a social economic point of view where it wants to tax the companies and help the poor people, right? But they may cooperate in parliament to oppose the same motion. So that's the basic premise behind the debate, is the coalition in parliament where some parties support something and other parties oppose it. You have supporting teams in the debate called government teams that are supposed to help each other, and so do the opposing teams called opposition teams. But all four teams in this debate also try to be the very best one, the one that makes the most powerful arguments, that impresses the judges the most. The result is the teams are ranked first through fourth. And this is the flow of the debate. As you can see, it's divided into two benches. You have a government bench represented in blue. You have an opposition bench represented in red. Then you also have two halves to the debate. There's an opening half at the top and a closing half at the bottom. So you end up with the first speech being given by the Prime Minister, who is in the opening government team. Speech then flows to the opposition bench. Leader of opposition speaks, followed by Deputy Prime Minister in the opening government, Deputy Leader of Opposition in the opening opposition. Those are the first two teams in the debate. They set out the problem, they set out the proposition, they set out the main lines of the opposition. Then you move to the closing half. You have closing government with member of government. The member of government is going to try to introduce a new idea, something that supports the motion from a different point of view, that changes the character of the debate, and makes that team seem more important in supporting the motion than the opening half was. Then you have closing opposition, which does the same thing, trying to also respond to the closing government, trying to shift the attention of the audience and the judges to the new ideas that are emerging in the closing half. Finally, you have two whip speakers, government whip, opposition whip. Those people organize the whole debate. They're going to try and highlight what their team did as the best argument, but they also have a responsibility to sort of summarize and organize the whole debate and give us a reason for voting for their bench. So it can sometimes get interesting. The two teams ought to cooperate, and yet they're competing against each other on each side as well. Sometimes the ideas can get a little bit confusing if the teams don't listen to each other carefully, but in the best debates, you have teams that are cooperating, but at the same time you have constantly new ideas coming out, further and further reasons that are expanding your understanding of the topic. So that's what we're hoping for in today's debate. It is not scripted. These teams have had a little extra time to prepare beyond normal, but they don't know what each other are going to do. There is no scripting in the debate. It's totally spontaneous what comes out from the speakers. To watch the debate, a few things you need to know. First, all speeches are 7 minutes. Between 1 minute and 6 minutes, other debaters can interrupt the speaker with points of information, called POIs for short. And the chairman of the debate, which is me, Professor Kipp, will mark the beginning and end of POIs by banging a desk. So at 1 minute, I'll go like that. Don't be surprised. At the end of this POI time, 6 minutes, I'll go like that again. And at 7 minutes, I'll mark the end of the speech by banging twice. So speakers are allowed a few extra seconds, usually about 15 seconds to finish up their speech, but beyond that, I just start going like this, telling them, sorry, you're taking too much time. And then they have to end, because otherwise it's cheating. You're not allowed to have extra time to make your team sound better, right? If you can't do it in 7 minutes, well, sorry, somebody else will have to do it for you. Finally, feel free to cheer for the debaters who make good points by saying, "Hear, hear." If you like what they say, or if you think they said it very well, or just if you like them because they smiled and had a cute outfit on, or whatever, feel free to cheer for the debaters. If you really want to, you can say shame if you think they say something really bad. But usually just cheering is the most polite thing to do. Okay, after the debate, or during the debate, in fact, feel free to take notes. I hope, well, anyway, if you don't have blank note pages, you can come up right now and get them before the debaters start. Or you can just listen if you don't want to take notes. It's not a requirement, I think, or maybe it is. Is it a requirement? No. Professor Inoue says you don't have to take notes if you don't want to, but feel free to take notes. And vote for a winning team and best speaker at the end of the debate. I think Professor Inoue and maybe Kota Jodoi, who's a teaching assistant, and I will distribute these ballots at the end if you don't have them. And then you can circle the winning team and circle the best speaker. And then we'll collect and count them. All right, so I'm going to now introduce the debaters, and then we'll have the debate. Debaters, please come down to the floor and take your seats. So the team you'll be hearing from first is the opening government team, and I'd like these two debaters to introduce themselves, starting with the Prime Minister.
Hi, my name is Kyushu, and I'm from Ewha University in Korea.
You're here.
And I'm very happy to be here to debate with you guys. And thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yamato Oda, and I am the junior of this university. And now I'm very nervous.
Okay, directly opposing them and trying to beat them down because they're just so mean. We have opening opposition, so I'd like you guys to introduce yourselves as well. Starting with the leader.
Hi, my name is Ewha. I'm a third grade student at Kyushu University, and I belong to the Faculty of Science and the Department of Biology. And it is a great honor to be able to debate here today. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kipp, and today I will be the deputy leader of opposition. I'm from Ewha University, and I'm from the Debate Association of Ewha. I'm very happy to be here and both honored. Thank you so much for providing this wonderful opportunity for me to debate.
Okay, after those teams finish their throwdown, then the debate will move on to closing half. Closing half teams will be trying to outshine their opening half and bring even better and more powerful arguments into the debate. So starting with the closing government, the member, also called the extension speaker because he's trying to extend the argumentation.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kenji Tomita. I am a second year law student from Kyushu University, and I am a president of Univ. I'm very happy, and it is a great honor to be here. I will try my best. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Minjung Lee, and I'm a sophomore of Ewha University in South Korea. And I'm the government whip for today's debate. Thank you.
Okay, last but not least, in fact, some teams really like to be in this position because they get the last word in the whole debate. And if they can make it memorable, it's maybe the most impressive word as well. We have closing opposition, starting with the member.
Hi, my name is Kipp, and I'm a sophomore in Ewha University, and I'm the member of opposition today. And I'll try my best. I hope you enjoy the debate. Thank you.
Ito. I am junior at Kyushu University. My major is economics. And I am very nervous, but I am last speaker, so I will summarize this debate and I will give you the focus of deciding which thing is wrong. Please enjoy. Thank you.
All right, I believe that concludes the introduction of debaters, and we are ready to begin the debate. I'll take 1 minute myself to arrange myself there. I'm going to be the chairperson, timing, and so on. After the debate, we'll collect votes, and there will also be a brief discussion session where you can ask questions, or if you prefer, you can even give your own opinion and argue with the debaters if you like. I think they have a microphone there. Okay, that way it's better. Yeah. All right, I call this house to order.
Peter,
Yes, sir.
how we point? How we do point? No.
Oh, no microphone. I guess there's no extra microphone. Just speak out loudly so everyone can hear you. I think the acoustics are good. There's not a huge audience. People aren't going to be shuffling about and making a lot of noise, so I think it'll work. Okay, that'll work too. All right, you have a second microphone. All right. So, if there are no further questions, once again, I'll call this house to order. And once again, congratulations to all 4 teams for being here on this wonderful occasion to debate on the issue of nationalism in Japan. Thank you to the audience for coming out on a Sunday to listen to this debate, and I hope it's worth your time. To open debate on the motion, "This House regrets the rise of nationalism in Japan," we call the Prime Minister.
Thank you, everyone. I'm the Prime Minister of the opening government side. Today's motion is, "This House regrets the rise of nationalism in Japan." Under the status quo, 2012, Abe is second time appointed as the Prime Minister in Japan. And he seems like they kind of promote the right-wing political person, and he did and doing many things to inspire the people and to cooperate, to make them to cooperate to make the Japan more stronger. So in this context, I'd like to define our motion. We defined this house as the Japan, and we defined the rise of nationalism as the neo-nationalism in recent politics in Japan, especially through the Abe's policies. And we defined the regret as it has not been accomplished his purpose, the Abe's purpose. We think that his purpose is to make Japan more stronger. And on the contrary, we believe that it makes Japan more chaotic, not make stronger. So in this respect, we think it's regret, the rise of the nationalism. So I'd like to talk about the status quo in the Japan, and then I will move on to my argument. About the status quo. There are many efforts of the Abe to make the Japan more stronger. We make a summary for 5 points of the status quo as the Abe's activity. First, he tried to beautify the history of the Japan to make the public opinion. In the past, in Japan, people and politicians has the responsibility of the war and about the killing many people in the war in the past and or invade other countries. And they said that they believe that it won't repeat again in this society. But after the Abe, he believed that we need to invade if it is necessary to protect our nation. So It is also in terms of the self-defense, and it seems like he promotes the strong self-defense to make the Japan more stronger. So in this aspect, that he tried to beautify the history of Japan, in terms of the self-defense. And second, in Japan, to make more louder voice of necessity of the nuclear weapon, because some politician and member of the Ministry of National Defense argue that we need to own a nuclear weapon because there are a lot of threats in the international world in terms of the also self-defense. And third, with his party, they emphasize patriotism to the public and nationalism to Japanese to make them cooperate with the government and to make a more strong nation. And fourth, the Abe want to expand and magnify the military force. It also as the inspector of the self-defense of the Japan. And lastly, he visited and worshipped the Yasukuni Shirin, and it has a many huge impact in the international society. So as this summary of the Abe's activity, we believe that his purpose is strengthen the Japan with the cooperation of citizens and to make a physical power in the international society. But we regret the rise of nationalism in Abe's policies because we believe that these policies are not achieve the purpose of the Abe, that the strengthening the Japan. So from now on, I'd like to talk about why we regret about this motion. I will talk about how the rise of nationalism weakening the Japan, comparing before the rise of nationalism in globalized society. And second, my partner will talk about how it is different from the nationalism in the past nationalism in history, and he will elaborate why it is not strengthening power of Japan in recent years. So from now, I'd like to talk about first argument. We live in a quite different society comparing in the past. We live in I can represent the world as the globalized world in this world, as in the world. So in the globalized world, it influences each other between the nations very tightly. And for example, a policy of Japan can influence the world generally, and the international society can influence Japan a lot because they are tightly related each other, including politics and economics and cultures. So in this respect, we cannot ignore the international perspective to make more strong Japan. So we think, yes?
But don't you think because there is a lot of power dynamics in the international society, it is important for a nation to have a strong sense of a collective identity?
That's the point my arguments is go on. Because we also agree that we have to make more power in the international society, but we think this power should be different from the past because it is a different world, like a globalized world. The Joseph Nye explains this phenomenon in his book, suggests the direction of the power very well. He's talked about the soft power and hard power, and he mentioned about the hard power. It is a physical power than military force like a border of the nation, but we promote that, and also Joseph Nye explained in his book, the soft power is the main power in the recent globalized society. Because in the soft power, the internet is, because of the internet and SNS and culture exchange is so many happened in the globalized world, and with the soft power, we can move and we can influence other society to in a way the more stronger way. So if the Japan wants to be strong, they do not rely on just the hard power in this situation because it is not working well and it even worse the situation. So looking back to the status quo, the Abe's policies. First, beautify the history and worship the Yasukuni Shirin. We think that it is not working well because in the international society, it will worsen the situation in the international society because people feel very bad about this situation, and it is also related and reflected in their relation with other countries. So it is not a stronger way to Japan has to move on. So, and second, to enlarge the military power, we think it is physically and directly threatening other countries in the international society, even if it is kind of self-defense, because I will get nervous if my neighbor has if my neighbor buy a guns in their house, with this logic, the China and Korea and the very related nations will be very threatened by this happening. And lastly, about the patriotism, because of the influence of SNS, internet, and other Twitter, the citizens of the Japanese are not easily manipulated by the government. So we think it is not working very well in the society. For this reason, I'm very proud to propose. Thank you.
The Prime Minister spoke for 7 minutes, 30 seconds. We thank her very much for her speech. And we now call the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and hello everyone in this house. Now under the status quo, Japanese government is struggling to recover from the damage caused by the earthquake, and we need a strong sense of unification, and we have to work together to recover from the damage. And they said that now our Japanese people are manipulated by the government, but actually Japanese people are supporting the government, and we are increasing a sense of unification and get stronger in the world competition. So it is not a bad thing, we believe. And first, let me refine the motion. Let me refute what the previous speaker said. The previous speaker said that the policy of the Abe, Prime Minister of Japan, has failed so far. And however, we say that after the earthquake, we are generally supporting the government, and we are getting together and strengthening the power of Japanese government. And as a result, we are more conscious of the problem of Japan, and we are more interested in the problem of Japan. And as a result, we are acting together to solve these problems, social problems which are happening under the status quo. And so it is not a bad thing. We are moving in the right direction to solve social problems. And next, let me move on to our argument. I'm going to analyze how nationalism has changed from the past. In the time of war, nationalism meant sacrificing your lives to save the country for the profit of the country. And however, it has changed from the past because we are getting together and trying to strengthen the nation. And it is because we know it will lead to individual profits. In the time of war, we are sacrificing our profits for the nation, but it is now for the individual rights or individual profits. It is completely different, and we say it took a turn and into a better direction for the profit of the individuals. And let me move on to our second argument. Our second argument is regain compatibility and trust and strengthen Japan. As I said in my introduction, Japan has been struggling after the earthquake to recover from the damage. And in this situation, Japan has to take some unique stance as a nation and take actions to recover from it. If we citizens are moving into different directions, we cannot solve these problems. We have to work together and increase a sense of unification and try to solve these problems as a nation. It is a very important thing. And sorry, Susan, please. And Abe's policy include Abe's policy includes the build-up of armaments, and it is true. But now under the status quo, the tension between Japan and some other countries is a big problem. For example, China is threatening Japan, or North Korea is launching a missile to Japan, and in order to protect from them, it is necessary to increase its military power. And if they actually attacks Japan, if Japan or Japanese military force is weak, the government cannot protect its citizens from them, and Japan has to take some actions to sometimes increase its military force and protect its citizens from other nations. And this military force is not meant for attacking other countries or threatening other nations. It is just, we believe that it is to protect its citizens from attacks from other nations. And we believe that they said that now a lot of people are thinking like the right wing, but we believe that Japanese people are generally are not supporting the war, and we will never fail and move towards the war. It will never happen, we believe. We were using this military force to protect its own territory from the threat of the other nations. And so we believe that now Japan is a very difficult, Japan is facing a lot of difficulty, and this is caused by the earthquake or some other factors. And we have to foster a sense of unification and work together to recover from the damage caused by the earthquake, and we have a collective identity, and we will be able to solve social problems. And the nationalism is taking a step to different directions, and it is meant to realizing individual profit, not threatening other nations or attacking other nations. This is something different from the past. And a second argument, this plan will lead to regaining compatibility and trust in the world. So, for these reasons, we are proud to oppose. Thank you.
The opposition leader spoke for 6 minutes, 55 seconds. We thank him very much for his speech, and we now call the Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon, everyone in this house. Then, firstly, I'd like to give you a context of now and of the Japan and the status quo. Then, as the partner, the Prime Minister said before, the Japan in the Abe's cabinet, then we have a lot of problems. The first point is about the beautifying of the history, and the second point is about to have the nuclear weapon, and the third point is about the extension of the army, and the fourth point is about the enhance of the patriotism, and the final point is about to go to the shrine. And in this, under status quo, Abe is trying to make the direction of the Japan to the right. So this is a problem. Therefore, we strongly support this motion. Then, firstly, then second, I'd like to refute what the previous speaker said. I have three rebuttals. The first point is about the recovery from the earthquake. So he said in this argument, we need the right-wing concept to recover from the earthquake, and to unify to unite our mind to the one direction, we need the Abe's idea. However, this is not true. I have the question: why we need the right-wing concept. We can make the people direction in the one way using other idea. We don't need to use the right-wing idea. So what he have said doesn't stand. And secondly, the previous speaker said that we need the military to protect Japan. However, this is not true. As you know, around Japan, there's a lot of strong country. For example, the China or Korea. Then, if we Japan try to make our military strong, then they will also try to make the army strong. Then, this is the way to the war. We shouldn't repeat the tragedy of the war 70 years ago, about 70 years ago, or we shouldn't repeat such miserable thing. So we shouldn't make the tension between the country to country higher and higher. So we have to avoid it. Therefore, what he said doesn't stand. Then, next, I'd like to move to my argument. My argument is about how the situation is different from the situations between the country neo-nationalism and in the past. So, as you know, in the past, about 70 years ago, there's a lot of strong country. They tried to expand their territory more and more. So they need the power to protect themselves, or they need the power to invade other country. So of course, at that time, Japan have to have the power to protect ourselves, from invasion of the other country, for example, the China or Korea or America. However, under status quo, now, we don't have to have such strong power, because now world hope the peace, and our United Nations need the peace, and they want the peace to the world. So the United Nations or the other country never try to unreasonable invasion, or they never try to invade other country in unreasonable way. So we don't have to get the more stronger power. Therefore, we shouldn't go to the right wing.
That's what.
Sure.
Now, North Korea is launching a missile for unreasonable reason. So how do you protect from these invasions?
It is possible without make our army power strong, because we have enough power to protect ourselves from the missile from the North Korea. We can destroy the missile from North Korea with using the power we have now. So we don't need to increase our power or our military power, and we shouldn't give the power to our military to protect the peace around Japan or in the world. Therefore, we don't, as I said before, we don't need the power to protect the Japan. Therefore, and then what we need now is the soft power, as my Prime Minister said before. With the soft power, we can increase the black in the trade, and we can get the profit from the world. Therefore, we can become strong economically or politically in the world. So we need to spare the money into the soft power, or we need to use the money in such area. So therefore, we shouldn't go to the right wing. We don't need to go to the right wing. So, therefore, in summary, we don't need the right power because we have to protect the peace of the world, and we have to protect our profit, and we have to protect our country. Thank you.
The Deputy Prime Minister spoke for 7 minutes, 13 seconds. We thank him very much for his speech, and we now call the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of this House. Mr. Speaker, in a society which is suffering from extreme individualism, where a national or collective identity is difficult to be formed, but yet is situated in a difficult situation that affects the whole nation and every single person in that nation, we believe that a strong collective identity is necessary to solve the collective problem. And here comes in the necessity of nationalism and the status quo of Japan, like my wonderful leader of opposition have specifically told you, Mr. Speaker. And we see a very bad government coming up here today because they were saying that they regret that the rise of nationalism has been doing no good for Japan, that it has been actually backlashing upon them. However, the only thing they have been able to elaborate to us, is that we don't need the right wing. They have never been able to explain the specific negative harms of nationalism of Japan into Japan or the international society, Mr. Speaker. So today, on the opening opposition, we're going to specifically show you why first, the aspects of nationalism has actually changed from the past into civic nationalism, from selfish nationalism and fascism. And second, I'm also going to talk about how still in the international society where many kinds of identity is able to be formed, why still the strong nation state is necessary, and why the strong role of government is still needed in the status quo rather than soft power, Mr. Speaker. So moving on, before I move on to any of the points, I would like to rebut a few points made by the opening government. Mr. Speaker, they keep saying there is a problem, Mr. Speaker. They say that there is a problem, that Japan is doing actually a bad thing, that they are not solving the essential problem in the status quo. However, why don't they see that the problem has actually been solved already, that it is in the process of being solved, Mr. Speaker? Like my great elders told you specifically, Japan has been continuously suffering from a long economic depression. It has been suffering from a great national crisis in the case of Fukushima. Right? It was not an ordinary earthquake. It was a case that affected millions of people, that affected the international society also, that even changed the status of Japan of an international powerhouse. That status had been threatened, Mr. Speaker. But what do we see now? We see Japan has recovered. We see Japan has been rising up back to the place that it has been before. That we see that Japanese trust in the international society has been raising. That Japanese companies are regaining their strength in the economic parts, and that the Japanese politicians are regaining their strength and power in the status quo, Mr. Speaker. So we see that Japanese nationalism has not been useless. We see it has been actually saving the lives of the Japanese people, and has been upholding the pride and the existence of the Japanese society itself, Mr. Speaker. So moving on to my first point that will actually back up the L's speech. That the change of nationalism's aspect in Japan from selfish nationalism to civic nationalism. Mr. Speaker, before I go into anything else, I want to explain these two terms. Selfish nationalism is like fascist, where the nation only thinks about its own identity and its own profits, that it ignores everything else. And we can see that fascism falls into this category where individual rights and freedom were totally ignored. However, in this case, we see that the case is completely different. The opening government kept saying that the nationalism Japan pursues has to be different, but yet it is the same and therefore problematic. However, in my speech, I'm going to clearly prove to you that the two cases are totally different, Mr. Speaker. So many people instinctively have a bad feeling when the two terms collaborate, Japan and nationalism, because they still have the bad stereotype of Japan being an ex-convict nation, Mr. Speaker. They criticize, like the opening government, Japan for being a fascist and selfish nation, and characterizes it to be an antagonistic, belligerent country that wants to pick fights on other nations by like snatching lands and like making wars to other nations, Mr. Speaker. However, I'm going to tell you specifically why this is not the case. In the past, Japan in the war case had fascist nationalism where individual sacrifice was forced for the sake of totalitarian ideologies. However, and therefore individual freedom was neglected totally. However, in the case now, it is the reason the government pursues nationalism is for the people. The people actually support Abe. They want Abe to have a strong nationalistic stance, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, we see that it is totally different from the past ideology. And I wonderfully told you about the specific problems, the extremely difficult situation Japan is in now. And therefore, to solve it, we need a collective identity to form, because a nation must get together to solve the same problem that collectively affects the nation as a whole. Because I'm a Korean, right? But if I don't see her as another Korean that's situated in a problem, if I don't feel for her that I feel for myself, I don't really get to help her, right? And therefore, in this case, we need a strong sense of identity, collective identity, so that I feel for her what I feel for myself. And this was exactly the case of Fukushima in Japan. And we see that Abe's nationalistic stances have been successful in this case. Therefore, it is impossible to solve national problems together if we don't have this nationalistic stance. It hurts individuals because they are, affected by the state of the nation. Therefore, we see that Abe's nationalism can be justified. And moving on to my second point, Mr. Speaker, which is the necessity of strong nation state in the status quo in the globalized society still. We live in a globalized society, but still, who protects your rights? If I go kill someone, who prosecutes me? Who protects your rights? It's the government. It's not your God. It's not like the leader of your race. It's still the government. The government protects us. Therefore, the government has to stand in order to protect my rights. Therefore, government holds a very, very important role in the status quo, because not only within the society, but also in the international society, Mr. Speaker. Because the trust within the international society, the status of Japan, like I briefly mentioned in the introduction of my speech, has a very important long-term effect on the total Japanese people. And therefore, we are justified in saying that Abe's nationalistic stances have been useful in this case. Because after Fukushima's nuclear plant accident, exports income from Japan dropped dangerously, stock prices of Japan companies fell, and nationalistic bonds and loans of Japan were being required to be returned quickly. And the status of Japan being a national powerhouse was very, very shaky. And therefore, if the government didn't really take a strong stance, we were on the verge of seeing Japan fall. And we also saw in 2 cases in the history of Japan, when they did not take a strong nationalist stance, we saw the case where Japan was falling into destruction. The first case is in the Meiji Jushin, when they were opening up to the Western society. They felt they lost war. And in the second case is in the Plasma Agreement in 1985, when Japan actually lost in the nationalistic fight from America. They agreed to drop the exchange rate of Japan, and therefore their price of yen dropped dangerously, and therefore what did we see? We see Japan suffering for over 25 years since 1985 in an economic crisis, Mr. Speaker. So for all these reasons, we believe that the nationalistic stance, the right-wing stance, is necessary for Japan, and therefore we are very proud to oppose. Thank you.
The Deputy Leader of Opposition spoke for 7 minutes, 28 seconds. We thank her very much for her speech. And we now call the Member of Government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This House, the opening government, the debate of the opening government is about the soft power versus the nationalism is still needed in the global society, but society. We believe that in the globalized era, so nationalism is very harmful to Japan. The first way, let me refute what the opening opposition has said. They said that the nationalism has been changed from the past, but we believe that the nationalism is still stands. The concept of the nationalism stands for the sacrifice of the individual, so it is very harmful, we believe. The secondly, they say that a strong nation is still needed because even in the international society, who protect you is still nation. But we believe that, as Deputy Prime Minister already told you, we believe that we have enough self-defense power in the status quo. So the argument doesn't stand. Okay.
But don't you think if a North Korean person kills you, who is going to protect you? The Japanese government is going to protect you.
But we believe that we have enough defense power in the status quo, so it is no problem. So let me give you some detail about the globalization. In the globalized era, and now under the status quo, Mr. Abe wants to revive the Japanese economy and rewrite Japanese history. But the revival of the Japanese, not only Japanese economy, he never considered other countries' economy. So, and he wants to rewrite the Japanese history. So, but we believe that history itself is not only about Japan, but also the relationship among the country. So that if we take Abe politics, the relationship among the country will be worsen and worsen. So in the globalization era, it is very important to keep better relations. It is very important to respect other countries. It is very important. No, thank you. It is very important. So if we take Abe politics, maybe Japan will isolated in the international society. So it is very harmful for Japan. Okay, let me extend our argument. We have. Okay.
If only changing Japanese history view and relationship will broken. Why can you explain about soft power?
Sorry, I don't understand. Sorry. Okay, let me extend our new argument. Mr. Speaker, opening half is about practical idea, but we will give you the principal idea. The nationalism itself is a kind of idealism. It's kind of the utopia. So in the status quo, now under the status quo in Japan, the individualism, the concept of the individualism is spreading. For example, many people live alone, not live live in a big family. Many people live alone. So individualism is spreading. No, thank you. And moreover, there are many foreign workers who came from other countries in Japan, and so we say that the nationalism itself is the concept of the purpose of the nationalism is to unify people under the name of the nationalism. So we believe that the nationalism itself is very collective idea, the kind of, it is beyond the reality. It is beyond the reality, so it is not good. Okay.
Are you saying that we don't need collectiveness in the society anymore?
I will explain later. As you know, there are many kinds of collectivism, not only nationalism, but also fascism, communism, the Islamic fundamentalism. There are many kinds of collectivism. The nationalism is a kind of collectivism. No, thank you. The collectivism is beyond the reality and make a the purpose of the collectivism is beyond the reality and to make a utopia. But as you see in the Nazi Germany, as you see in the Soviet Russia, no collectivism didn't work well. So. Okay.
But what about the case of the United States of America, where it was able to unify the different races and individuals together under the name of America?
but we can say that even in America, the nationalism, the concept of the collectivism is we say that it's do not work well. So sorry. Okay. If we take our politics to unify the people under the name of nationalism, that will be beyond the reality, and the policy of the beyond the nationality is very harmful because that will weaken Japan because it is beyond the that will weaken Japan because it is beyond the reality, and it forces people to unify. So it will destroy the variety. So for these reasons, we are very proud to support this motion. Thank you very much.
The member of government spoke for 7 minutes, 13 seconds. We thank him very much for his speech, and we now call the member of opposition.
Mr. Speaker, before I move on to anything else, I would like to tell you two things. First, the government side is very unpatriotic without knowing that nationalism is better for their own good. And second, I would like to tell you beforehand that we believe that this debate is a bench win where you have to rank our rankings yourselves. Because we believe that even if we are two different teams, we really had great teamwork. So, moving on. So we noticed that the concept of like globalized era was discussed in this debate. However, Mr. Speaker, like we would like to actually ask the government side as to why this is harmful. I mean, as to why like we would like to tell you as to why this is harmful, because like we believe that in the globalized era, this actually promotes like integration outside Japan, where the previous speakers has mentioned individualism. Like we believe that while we are actually living in this kind of era, we believe that unifying people, unification under nationalism actually brings more benefit. Well, the opening half has told you about how this will bring more, how this is better in terms of like principle level. I'm going to talk about the practical level. But before moving on to anything else, first rebuttals. No, sit down. First, in terms of like, we believe that there were the military issue was one of the most discussed issue in this debate. However, Mr. Speaker, like. We kept, the opposition side kept on telling the government, like in the POI, if you were killed, Japan actually protects you. Your own nation protects you. No other nation actually protects you. So under this context, we believe that unification under nationalism is better. And secondly, you believe that nationalism does not care about other economy. Then shame on you. Japan is one of the second to the largest economy in the world, where they also have, where they're also one of the largest countries that actually promotes foreign directed investment, therefore helping other countries. So if you do not know this, situation, then you do not know the benefits of nationalism. And lastly, like You kept on talking about fascism. Mr. Speaker, as it was mentioned in the opening bench, fascism is a bad thing, and this was distinguished between nationalism very well, and we do not understand as to why this is still continually being discussed until now. But before I move on, yes, Emily.
Why do you think that collective identity is the only way rather than soft power? Because it provoked backlash in international society, as Yasmin is right.
Okay, you're saying that you have to promote soft power. However, Mr. Speaker, like we believe that nationalism is better, and I'm going to actually integrate that within my arguments, which I'm going to discuss now. So, Mr. Speaker, we believe that there is actually a rise to this nationalism. Like, we believe that the reason for nationalism that's actually rising is in order to protect Japan from like political, social, and also economic situations from other neighbors. Like the reason why nationalism is present is because we would actually like to maximize devotion in order to unify people as one. And what kind of benefits and why are people doing this with what kind of benefits? I'm actually going to talk about that right now. However, like I have mentioned in my rebuttal, like we told you that nationalism is very different from totalitarianism. And also in the status quo, we also observe like nationalism, Japanese people having low confidence due to like the graying society, low birth rate, and numerous like societal problems that's predicting a very gray society in the future. However, Mr. Speaker, we believe that a young, fierce, and competitive leader like Abe will actually motivate these people and act as a support in order to encourage these people for their own well-being. So first, in terms of socially, like I have mentioned in my rebuttal, we recognize the presence of a globalizing society. However, we believe that well, this is actually reintegrating people outside their own nation. We believe that this is we do not really like as to what it has done to our society, because we believe that the promoting and the support of nationalism actually help us pursue things, and actually like unifying the country is actually better for its political and also economic good. So like if we're going to move on to the second level, like economically, how is this better? Like I have mentioned in my rebuttal, like we recognize the fact that Japan is like the second largest world economy. So like but despite Japan having a large position in globally, we observe that Japanese politics is being very careful and actually being unsure of whether if it wants to be fierce or not. However, Mr. Speaker, we believe that nationalism, such as like unification, it actually promotes dedication to its country, and it's going to benefit them economically. How? Because like we believe that if we actually promote unification and dedication, we believe that this societal atmosphere actually encourages them to work hard. We believe that this kind of atmosphere encourages them to dedicate their work for their country, because they know that it is not only better for their country, but that benefit is also going to come back to them in the end. So a very good example of this is really reflected in the current Japanese stock market, where after Abe came into politics under his fierce policy, the stock market was observed to be increasing. And lastly, moving on politically, like we believe that while the opening bench talked about as to the numerous societal problems, we believe that if we're going to actually promote nationalism, like it's still going to be better for politically. Like how? Like I have mentioned before, like the military power has been discussed a lot in this debate. However, like I would like to tell you, I would like to highlight that Japan is actually under NSD, where unless they are actually provoked by other countries, they're not actually going to attack other countries. They are only using this in order for self-defense. So we believe that Abe's policies, such as like economic policy or even like political policies, like for example, like exporting like Japanese goods or like culture in order to promote Japan into the global society, is actually better for the country. So we believe that because the government actually failed to justify like as to why this is like very bad, despite the success that was shown throughout the opening bench, we believe that we take this debate home. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the opposition leader. The opposition leader spoke, or sorry, not opposition leader, the member of opposition spoke for 7 minutes, 46 seconds. All right, we now move to the final speaker from the government, the whip speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and ladies and gentlemen. In today's debate, in my speech, I'm going to do 3 things in my speech. First, I'm going to rebut to all of the opposition case by 2 points, and then I'll move on to my first clash, which is about the unification under the name of nationalism. And I'm going to examine whether the unification under the name of nationalism actually exists. And then I'll move on to the second clash, which is about gains and losses from nationalism. So let me move on to my rebuttals. First, the whole opposition bench came up to the podium and asked us, government side, do you think the collective identity is not necessary? Mr. Speaker, what we have a problem is not about debate whether it's necessary or not, but the nationalism. We continuously ask the opposition bench why should be nationalism, and that's why the opening government brought out the debate about soft leadership and hard leadership, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, we believe that there are so many other collective identities or organizations which are rather than nationalism. There are regional organizations, there are religious organizations, rather than unifying all people by a single criterion called nation, Mr. Speaker. And we think the diverse collective identity is actually better than single nationalism, because this diverse collective organization or ideas enable you to come up with different ideas, which actually flourishes Japan in the end of the day. And second rebuttal is about army issue. This was a big issue from the beginning to the end. However, Mr. Speaker, we don't think this army issue is going to be a big issue which determines the win or loss of this debate, because, Mr. Speaker, that's why we have international treaty, that's why we have agreement upon international community and society, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first of all, we think it's really impractical idea that suddenly one country comes to Japan and bombs and start a war, because there are international societies watching upon other countries, each other, and since they know there's gonna be consequences if they do those irresponsible actions, we don't think it's a practical idea from the first place. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, since Japan is getting support from other international societies, if that actually happens, we think UN or other committee which are consist of other international society will help Japan, and we think this army issue is taken by opposition government in today's debate. So first, let me move on to my first clash. Mr. Speaker, as our member told you, throughout the debate, the whole opposition bench built their arguments upon the assumption that there is a unification and nationalism make people one, as one. Mr. Speaker, questions thrown by closing government for the first time was these. First, is there a real unification? And second, is unification a good idea? First, and we tell you, we were the only one who came up with the principle level argument in today's debate. So first, is there a real unification? Mr. Speaker, as my member told you, nationalism is quite a vague and ambiguous idea from the first place. Nationalism means to gather people with a single criterion of a nation, regardless of their religion, regardless of their gender, and regardless of their ideology or political preference. They just tie up all people by a single criterion called nation, Mr. Speaker. And we think it's practically impossible to tie all diverse ideas and diverse people with different ideas into one. Why so? Yes.
Although the concept of nationalism may be artificial, what if the benefits are concrete?
And that's why I have a clash called weighing losses and gains from nationalism, Mr. Speaker. So let me move on to my first clash.
again. And moreover, we see increasing rate of one-person family in Japan, and we see spreading trend of individualism within Japan. And we don't think nationalism actually influenced those nationalism actually influenced those individuals who to be tied up or be united as one and go to one single direction at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker. And second question, is unification good? Mr. Speaker, opening opposition comes up to the podium and tells you about, says, concept of nationalism has changed so that you don't have to sacrifice your life, you don't have to sacrifice your profit. However, Mr. Speaker, we think it's a same bad thing. If you have to sacrifice your idea, if you have to sacrifice the ideology you have, because you have to be part of society under the name of nationalism, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, under nationalism, once you have different views from others, once you have different views from majority, and if you become a minority, you get shut out from the society and get boxed out from the society because people refuse to become one with you because you're not part of that society anymore, Mr. Speaker. And we think since the virtue of nationalism, as the opposition shouted throughout the debate, is to protect all the Japanese and embrace all the Japanese people. And as a collective, we don't think this concept of nationalism actually benefit Japanese people. And secondly, I want to weigh out the gains and losses from nationalism. Mr. Speaker, as closing government actually solved the deadlock between soft power and hard power by giving out the vivid picture what the international society will think if Japan goes into a direction, continuously goes into a direction called nationalism. Mr. Speaker, in economy, because Japan is intentionally underestimating the value of yen, at the end of the day, the other international society will isolate Japan at the end of the day. And also, as our member told you, since history is a sensitive issue among the international society, Japan will not be benefit from this idea at the end of the day. Thank you.
The government whip speaker spoke for 7 minutes 42 seconds. We thank her for her speech. And we now call the opposition whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hello, everyone in this room. I am the last speaker. So I will summarize in this debate. First, there are some crash points in this debate. The first crash point is about the recognized nationalism. What is nationalism? Government side explain, regularly open government explain nationalism have the active effect to other countries. I hear. And yes, and closing government explain this nationalism is changed, particularly changed. But I'm sorry, I can't understand what is connected to Abe policy. But opposition side explain that nationalism is nationalism explain what is nationalism purpose and why nationalism is very useful. Opposition side explain and repeat by unify and by giving confidence. Japanese people will get a strong power, and Japanese people can solve different problems. For example, big aspect, and so on. So on. It is clear. It is clear, as I believe. So, in this point, opposition side can explain more clearly. And next point is practical merit. Government side explain, repeat soft power, but outside cannot understand having only soft power, having only soft power countries can get a strong power. I know America has hard and soft and so on. And what is soft power benefit? Outside cannot understand. And next point is opposition side can explain how power and soft powers merit. Particularly having a hard power, we can get strong merit. Outside can explain. And next point. Next point, okay. And a practical point. Outside can explain by other policy. Japanese situation is increasing and increasing, as you know, and as my partner explained. For example, economic situation is growth and growth and growth, and but maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it is no nationalism, but there are no nationalism in the government. In this area, Japanese situation is very difficult, as you know. So outside believe our policy's message can give Japan the chance to be strong and strong. And finally, opposition side can explain the good effect of nationalism and what is nationalism, and opposition side can explain the merit of nationalism, and particularly closing side coding side, and my partner explain the merit of nationalism clearly. So outside, closing opposition is number one, and we oppose this motion. Thank you.
The opposition whip spoke for 7 minutes, 25 seconds. We thank him very much for his speech. Let's give a warm round of applause for all the teams. And debaters, please cross the floor and shake hands with your opponents. All right, and we have a winner. All right, so it was a pretty clear vote. Out of a total of 26 ballots, winning more than half the ballots, 17 points, opening opposition. Congratulations. I can't speak for the rest of the audience. I also voted for them. I thought that even though maybe their example was a little bit limited, that the way they tried to expand beyond just looking at examples of specific things that caused problems or did benefits, I thought that they did the best job of dealing with the general concept of what does nationalism mean, how has it possibly changed, or how does it have good and bad aspects. I thought their second point about how Prime Minister Abe's policies have actually managed to raise Japan's international standing, make people respect its military more, make people trust its stock market more and its investments. I thought those were actually very, very good points that somewhat answered opening government's points. I would have liked some more specific examples from opening opposition, but I also did vote for opening opposition along with the majority of you. To honor the other teams, in second place we have opening government. Congratulations. In third place, closing government. Congratulations. And sorry, fourth place, closing opposition, but congratulations anyway. People did vote for you. Nobody got 0 votes. Congratulations. All right, now we have a best speaker, and there is a prize for best speaker. It's actually quite close. I think the number of total votes should be the same. 10, 20, oh, for some reason 25. There must have been one that there was no vote on one of the ballots. So out of 25 votes, definitely not a majority. There was some difference of opinion. I'll start with third place. No prize, but congratulations and much appreciation from the audience. Imin-jung, the government whip. In second place, also much appreciation, no prize, sorry about that, the Prime Minister, Lee Jin-soo. But taking first place, not only for her dynamic style and good explanations, but also very active in making points of information that I think were very effective. Kim Mi-han, the Deputy Leader of Opposition. So, congratulations.